History says there were 47. 47 masterless samurai who marched through the snow of Edo on a single winter night, broke into their enemy's mansion, took his head, and then calmly walked to their own deaths. It's a clean story. People like the number. It feels complete. But the night it happened, when I was standing in the shadows of Lord Kira's garden with frozen hands around a useless spear, I counted something different. My name doesn't appear in the records. Why would it? I was only a low-ranked Ishigaru, a foot soldier with more calluses than coin, whose job was to stay awake when more important men slept. On the 14th night of the 12th month, Jinroku 15, what you'd call January 30th, 1703, the snow in Edo was thin but hard, old ice on old streets. The Kira mansion in Honjo district lay quiet, its tile roofs dusted white, the lamps dimmed for the hour of the rat. Inside, Lord Kira Yashinaka slept, or tried to, knowing that somewhere out there, 47 men might still be watching him. Everyone knew the story by then. 2 years earlier, in the shogun's castle, Lord Asano Naganori of Akō had lost his temper and drawn his sword in the pine corridor, slashing at Kira after some insult or humiliation we commoners were never allowed to hear accurately. For that crime, Asano had been ordered to commit seppuku the same day. His domain was confiscated. His samurai became rōnin overnight. Kira, untouched, returned to his mansion. Some admired his survival. Others whispered that it had been his plan all along. As for the Akō men, the city gossips said they had scattered, become merchants, monks, drunks. We, Kira's guards, hoped that was true. Our pay had not risen with the danger. That night, the wind was quiet. No dogs barked. In the main house, the servants' wing murmured with small sounds, someone turning over in sleep, a kettle settling on its stand. I stood by the garden wall, stamping my feet to keep blood in them. The moon was a thin, sharp curve above the tiled roofs. "Hey," whispered Matsuda, the guard on the next post. "You hear the rumor?" I grimaced. "Which one?" "That the rōnin sold their armor? That they all became merchants? That they shaved their heads and joined a temple?" He shook his head slowly. "No. A new one. They say their leader, Oishi, lives near the entertainment district, drunk every night, pretending to be broken. But his men take turns watching this house. Always 47 eyes, they say. One pair on you wherever you go." I laughed, but it came out thin. "Eyes don't cut throats," I said. "Swords do. And swords need hands, and hands need food. How long can they keep this up?" Matsuda shrugged. "Revenge has its own stomach," he said. "Anyway, look on the bright side. If they come, we either kill them or die fighting. Both are better than standing in the cold." He moved on, his breath fogging the air. I listened to his footsteps fade. Then I realized I could still hear another set, very faint, not on the snow but in it, as if someone were walking just under the surface of the ground. Crunch. 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 The hairs on the back of my neck prickled. "Who's there?" I called softly. No answer. The sound stopped. It was only after my heart calmed down that I noticed something else. The night was too quiet. In Edo, there is always some noise, distant drunks, a coughing child, a dog barking at a cat. But that night, it felt as if the world were holding its breath. In the main house, a bell chimed softly, signaling the change of the hour. From somewhere beyond the walls came another sound. A faint, steady rhythm. Not boots, sandals. Many of them. Moving in perfect time. They came through the snow like a shadow given shape. 47 men in matching jackets, white cords around their sleeves, straw sandals crunching in the icy ruts of the street. Some carried ladders. Others carried wrapped bundles that could only be armor and weapons. At their head walked a man with the bearing of a samurai and the eyes of someone who had already accepted his own death a long time ago. Oishi Kuranasuke. I had seen him once, months earlier, from a distance, in the pleasure district. He had been drunk, stumbling, clinging to a courtesan, face slack and foolish. Tonight there was no slackness. Only a terrible, quiet resolve. He stopped at the corner opposite the mansion and raised his hand. The column halted as if a single body. Matsuda hissed from his post. "It's them," he whispered. "Sound the alarm." But when he reached for his whistle, his hand froze halfway. So did mine. An icy pressure brushed across my chest, as if someone had wrapped cold fingers around my ribs. In that moment, a strange thought pushed into my mind: alien, calm, not mine. Not yet. Matsuda blinked, shook himself, and drew in breath to shout. Before he could, the first of the Akō men raised a small hammer and brought it down on the mansion's side gate. The wood split with a crack like a bone snapping. The quiet shattered. "Enemies!" Matsuda screamed. "To arms! Enemies at the gate!" The night exploded into motion. From inside the mansion came a chorus of startled shouts, the clatter of weapons, the shrill cries of servants. Lamps flared along the veranda. Doors slammed open. The rōnin swung forward through the broken gate, voices rising in unison. "Revenge for Lord Asano! Akō rōnin, to battle!" I saw the nearest man's face as he passed, calm, focused, with a strange brightness in his eyes, like a lamp that had burned too long. Then the fighting began. Official reports describe that battle with neat brush strokes. The rōnin divided into two groups, one attacking the front gate, one the rear, Kira's men resisting, casualties on both sides. I remember it as a blur of steel and breath. Matsuda and I rushed to meet the initial wave. My spear trembled in my hands. I had trained against straw targets, not men who had boiled their grief into a single blade. The first rōnin I faced parried my thrust with effortless precision, stepped inside my guard, and struck the shaft with his sword, snapping it in half. The broken spear spun from my hands. I stumbled. He could have killed me. Instead he pushed me aside with his shoulder and moved past, more interested in the house than its outer defender. As I fell, my head struck a stone lantern. Sparks burst behind my eyes. For a moment, lying there in the mud and snow, I saw the battle as if from above. The mansion sprawled like a wooden beast. The rōnin coursed through it like blood. Kira's men, scattered and half awake, tried to form lines and failed. And around them all, curling up from the snow like mist, something else moved. Shadows. Not the shadows of men or walls, but long, thin shapes sliding along the ground, keeping pace with the Akō warriors. In some places, they seemed to rise, coalescing around a man who had just been cut down, lifting him, turning his staggering fall into one last accurate strike. I blinked. The vision faded. The cold rushed back in. Matsuda grabbed my collar and hauled me to my feet. "Move," he shouted. "We've got to get to the Lord." We ran toward the inner chambers. Inside, the corridors were chaos. Servants screamed and scattered. Oil lamps toppled, sending flames licking up paper walls. The air filled with smoke and the coppery smell of blood. We rounded a corner and collided with 3 Akō men. The first swung his sword at Matsuda. My fellow guard blocked, sparks flying, and the clash of steel jarred my teeth. I ducked, grabbed the nearest object, an iron candle stand, and swung it as if it were a club. It caught one rōnin in the side of the head. He fell without a sound. For a heartbeat, I met the eyes of the man behind him. They were not angry. They were almost relieved. "Good," he murmured, as if to himself. "One less to walk the snow." He stepped forward to fill his comrade's place. Matsuda grunted as a blade cut into his shoulder. I swung again, more out of panic than skill. The candle stand shattered the wooden frame of the shoji next to us, opening a hole into the garden. Cold air rushed in. Through the jagged opening, I saw the main courtyard. Snow. Fire. Men shouting. In the center, half kneeling in the drift, Lord Kira's chief retainer struggled against 2 rōnin, his spear caught between their swords. His face was twisted with fury and fear. And yet, in the snow around his feet, there were too many footprints. Not just the tangled trampling of battle. Clear, separate prints, small and sharp, circling like a ring. They belonged to no one I could see. I stared, forgetting to breathe. Matsuda screamed. The rōnin sword went through his throat, spraying blood across the broken shoji. The man who struck him looked past me, as if at something over my shoulder. "Not him," he said softly. Then he moved on, leaving me kneeling beside my dying friend. "Run," Matsuda gurgled, blood bubbling at his lips. "Run, you idiot." His hand tightened on my sleeve, then went slack. Behind me, the corridor roared with approaching feet. I ran. The inner rooms of the mansion felt like a maze I had never truly known. Even though I had walked those corridors for months, they twisted now into unfamiliar directions, leading me always away from where I wanted to go. From the far side of the house came the crash of a door forced open, the shrill cries of women, and the hoarse shout of someone yelling, "He's not here." Search everywhere. They were looking for Lord Kira. So were we. I found myself in the storehouse where valuables and ceremonial armor were kept. The lacquered helmets of retainers glared down at me from their stands, horns and crests black in the wavering lamplight. Somewhere among them was Lord Kira's own mask, the face he used for formal occasions. I stumbled past it, heart pounding. The door at the far end of the storehouse slid open. A figure stepped through, outlined by the orange glow of distant fire. For a split second, I thought it was a rōnin, until I saw his clothes. Kira's night robe. Kira's crest. "Lord," I began. Then I realized I could see the wall through his chest. He walked past me without looking, bare feet leaving no prints in the dust. His eyes were wide, not with fear but with disbelief, like a man who has just realized the game was always rigged. Behind him, another figure emerged from the dark. This one I recognized from the street, Oishi Kuranasuke. Except, his face was not burned or bloodied. His clothes were not torn. His hair was tied with formal care, as if for a ceremony. He and the ghostly Kira walked side by side, perfectly matched, through rows of armor that bowed neither to one nor the other. As they passed, each helmet seemed to shift slightly, a faint nod. I pressed myself against a pillar, trying to make sense of what I saw. Are you already dead?" I whispered to no one. The two men reached the end of the storehouse and vanished through a wall that, a moment later, resolved itself into the closed sliding doors of the hidden room where the household shrine stood. From beyond it came the muffled clash of steel and the crash of something heavy knocked over. I blinked again. The vision collapsed into ordinary reality. Oishi burst through the actual door, this time very much solid, blood splashed across his sleeves. Behind him, 3 rōnin crowded into the shrine room, overturning chests, tearing open bedding. "Search everywhere," Oishi shouted. "Under the floor. Above the ceiling." One of them yanked open a small hidden compartment behind the altar. There, blinking like a rat dragged from its hole, Lord Kira crouched with a short spear in his shaking hands. What happened next is recorded in every account. They dragged him out. They offered him the chance to die with a blade in his own hands. He refused, or could not move. So one of the Akō men, Hayano, they say, held him down while another, Terasaka or perhaps someone else, took up a dagger and cut off his head. The room stank of blood and incense. The rōnin cheered once, not in triumph but in grim completion. "Lord Asano's honor is satisfied," someone said. Oishi knelt beside the severed head, staring at it as if trying to see something more than flesh. I watched from the shadows at the back of the storehouse, trembling. Because from where I stood, I could still see the other Kira, the one who had walked past me, transparent and confused, standing in the far corner, untouched by the scene. He looked at his own head, at Oishi, at the rōnin, at the burning beams above. Then he looked at me. "Is this all?" he asked. His lips did not move. The words arrived directly in my skull, cold and smooth. This is what everyone wanted so much. A head, a name, a story that fits in a lacquered box. I shook my head wildly, wanting to scream, wanting to run, but unable to do either. On the other side of the room, the real men were wrapping Kira's head in white cloth, binding it carefully for transport. Oishi stood and bowed to it with solemn respect. "Everything is complete," he said. The ghost of Kira laughed. The sound was dry and hollow, like ice cracking on a river. "Complete," he said. "No. It's only clean. Humans love clean endings. They will forget what doesn't fit." He took a step toward me. The flames flickered through his chest. "You," he said. "You saw them, coming through the snow." "How many?" "47, I stammered. "Everyone knows." "Count again," he whispered. I closed my eyes, mind racing back over the memory of that first glimpse in the street. Oishi at the front. Men behind him, in rows. Ladders. Spears. Swords. 47 shapes. And around them, the shadows. Thin, blade-like, sliding along the ground, keeping pace with each step. I opened my eyes. "How many shadows?" the ghost asked. My mouth had gone completely dry. "48, I whispered. There were 48 shadows. Kira smiled then. For the first time, he looked almost gentle. "That's right," he said. "Their dead lord walked with them. The one they could not bury. The one they were still carrying." He nodded toward the severed head, now wrapped and ready. "They think this is my end," he murmured. "They will march to Sengakuji, lay that in front of Asano's grave, and then open their own veins. People will write plays about their loyalty. Children will memorize their names." He stepped closer until his face was inches from mine. I could feel no breath, but the cold around him was so intense that my tears froze on my lashes. "But where," he asked softly, "do they think all that hatred goes after their throats are cut?" He pressed a finger, light as spider silk, to the center of my forehead. For a heartbeat, everything in the room froze. Dust, fire, men, even blood in mid-drip. In that instant, a vast weight pushed against me, years of resentment, humiliation, fear. Not only Kira's, but Asano's, Oishi's, every man who had knelt in a formal hall swallowing rage behind polite words. The weight looked for a place to go. I screamed. The world snapped back into motion. Oishi turned, startled, sword half-drawn. But the ghostly Kira was gone. Only the real head remained, wrapped in its white cloth. In the corner where the apparition had stood, the snow that had blown in through a shattered window was now melted, leaving a dark, man-shaped stain on the wooden floor. Oishi's gaze flicked over me, saw only a shaking, useless guard, and dismissed me as beneath notice. "Let him live," I heard him say later, as the rōnin assembled in the courtyard with their prize. "He did nothing. And someone should remember. You know the rest." Under gray winter skies, the 47 marched across Edo to Sengakuji Temple, Kira's head in a pail. On the way, people came out to watch, some cheering, some weeping, some silently staring. At the temple, they washed the head carefully and placed it before Asano's grave. Within weeks, by order of the shogun, the rōnin were allowed to die by seppuku instead of execution. They did so calmly, in groups, each opening his own belly, each name recorded in precise strokes. Their graves stand together at Sengakuji to this day. 47. I visited once, years later. The stone markers were weathered but cared for. Someone had left fresh incense. Threads of smoke twisted upward into the cold air. I counted them all, lips moving silently. 47. Then I turned. At the edge of the cemetery, away from the main path, there was another stone. Smaller, half swallowed by moss. No offerings before it. No name. When I scraped the moss away with shaking fingers, I found characters barely visible under years of rain. Kira. The rest was gone. As I knelt there, a shadow fell across the stone. I looked up. No one was standing there. Yet on the surface of the rock, my own shadow stretched longer than it should have in the fading light, its edges too sharp, its outline not quite matching the curve of my shoulders. A voice, familiar and cold, moved along my spine. Tell them the story, it said. Let them polish it, make it bright and honorable. Let them believe it ended here. I tried to stand. My knees did not obey. Because as long as they remember, the voice continued, I don't have to leave. My hands began to shake. Why me? I whispered. I was no one. I did nothing. That's exactly why, the voice said. You were empty enough. The incense smoke from the rōnin's graves drifted toward me, curling like fingers. In each wisp, for just a moment, I saw faces, Oishi, Asano, even Matsuda, all blurred, all watching. All waiting for the story to be told again. Now, when people ask me about that night, they want the clean version. They want 47 names, a clear villain, a satisfying revenge. Sometimes, in the middle of my well-rehearsed tale, I feel my tongue stumble toward a different number, a different ending. 48. But then the cold in my chest tightens, and the wrong words slide smoothly back into their proper places. So I say what they expect. 47 rōnin. One Lord. One head. One night. Everything complete. And if, on certain winter evenings, you walk near Sengaku-ji and see 47 shadows stretching from 47 graves, count again. If you find one more, thin and sharp, lingering at the edge of the light, understand this. Hatred doesn't vanish when bodies fall. It just finds emptier rooms to live in. Sometimes those rooms are mansions. Sometimes they are stories. And sometimes, when you listen too closely, those rooms are people like you. Letting old names burn quietly behind your eyes.